Welcome to Off the Wire, the podcast that helps you curb your cybersecurity risk and tackle technology challenges. I'm Tanner and I'm joined by Anthony. We're two IT executives with 35 years of experience. Let's start the show. All right, welcome back to Off the Wire podcast. Today we have a great interview lined up for you, and we're going to discuss how we create security culture in your organization, which is, we all know, very important, and more importantly is how do we create it and make it last. But before we jump in, I just want to make sure you're subscribed to the podcast if you're listening. And if you're already subscribed, make sure you click your notifications and have those enabled so that you never miss any of our new episodes. And if you find value in our discussion today, please help the podcast grow by sharing with someone who you think would benefit from what we're talking about. So let's get started. Today we got a special guest, and we thought it'd actually be best to let him introduce himself a little bit. Fletus, I'll turn it over to you and let everyone find out a little bit more about you.
Sure. Thank you for that. My name is Fletus Poston. I've been in the industry since 2006, 2007. Started pretty much in IDS work. So in intrusion detection systems at a satellite office in Boone, North Carolina, where I did my undergrad. After that, I did an internship with a local bank here in Charlotte in IT audit, where I got to cut my teeth on process and procedure before joining a regulated utility where I spent a good bit of my career doing IT service management, web app monitoring, and electronic document management. When I was in the electronic document management side, I went from being a business analyst into the systems admin, where I got to cut my teeth again doing some security work as an identity and access management. I managed several hundred AD groups, several dozen process accounts and service accounts, and decided at that point in time, it was time to get security back in my title. So I started networking at the time with the director of security operations, took a mentorship with him, went back and started my master's around the same time in information assurance. And then in 2016, I joined that utility as a cyber system engineer. Helped them build out their security operations center. When I left that utility, I had about 14 to 15 cyber system engineers reporting up underneath me, doing anything from endpoint detection and response, SIEM, SOAR, and cloud security. I now serve as a senior manager of security operations for a backup and recovery company based out of Minneapolis, where I currently own identity access management, threat and vulnerability, application security, and the security operations side. Been around the block, done a few different things. A lot of my passion is driving security back to the human. So I focus a lot on human-centric security and how it starts with you and I. Security is not what we do. I just happen to have security in my title.
So, Fletus, I think this is interesting that you have a focus on the people aspect of that. I just remember doing cybersecurity. I was really always interested in the tech stuff and the heavy focus on that. And I think everyone knows, though, people can either be your biggest weakness or your biggest strength. What kind of pushed you to do a focus on people and the culture of organizations?
Sure. So anyone who's done a Sec Plus or CISSP knows the people, process, and technology. We talk a lot about process and technology. Most of the podcasts you hear or videos you hear today is how to use a certain tool, how to implement a certain technology, and how to build certain process. Well, we don't spend enough time on educating our end users. I like to preach, we're not the weakest link, we're the primary attack vector. Security starts from the time we open our eyes to the time we lay down at night. We are inundated with technology from the time we wake up. If you're like me, the first thing you check is your phone. And then you may wander into your office before you go to the office if you're going, and you're going to check your email. While on your commute, you're likely going to get another text message, a push notification, or a potential scam phone call before you even make it to the office. If you're working from home, you're probably in the same boat. You're probably still using technology without thinking about it. Most of us today run a small business out of our home, because you have at least 20 connected devices in your home network. That's anything from your smart watches, your tablets, your cell phones, your laptops, and if you have any Internet of Things connected in your home. So because of that, we need to educate everyone, not just the people in our organizations, on how to secure themselves, how to properly harden their environments, how to stop and assess, and how to think about it. So again, you're not the weakest link, you're the primary attack vector, because all I got to do is convince you to accept that push notification, to give away a piece of information, or to inadvertently give away data, your password, share a file indirectly. If you're in Google and your workspace shop, you inadvertently share it with your personal account, or you send someone a piece of data that you wasn't meant to and you declassified the data. So just getting people to slow down and think is important, no matter if you're in finance, legal, marketing, IT, or security. It all starts with us because we use technology day in and day out from the time we wake up until the time we go to bed.
Yeah, you had a lot of great points there. I've never heard basically the people are the primary attack vector. That's definitely the case. And I think that's really a more accurate statement. And you talked about, you're looking at your phone, looking at your email. My first and last time falling for one of our own phishing simulation attacks was me on a Saturday morning, drinking coffee, barely awake on my phone. And I remember I was like, I got 300 emails, unread emails. Let me just catch up on the weekend. I was just blindly going through it, and he clicked on one of our own phishing simulation attacks. And anyways, that was the first and last time. And like you said, just having people have just be thinking about what they're doing. Just don't be blindly clicking along. I think that's a good point or a good item to point out.
Threat actors don't think about nights and weekends. So let's just say, for an example, I have 2 interns. One's 10, one's 8. If I happen to hand my phone to them to either answer a phone call, talk to their grandparents, or do something, that's a legitimate use of my phone. I also have MFA on my phone. I may have a push notification on my phone. They get a push notification because someone has scraped my password from a Pastebin account, and my intern, aka, just goes to swipe it away, but instead of swiping it away, they hit accept. I don't know that I've just inadvertently given access to my account because I was getting coffee while my son, in this case, was talking to their grandmother. So be cautious about if you're using MFA push notifications, probably don't do it. Go back to a challenge response where you put the 2-digit number in versus just accepting yes, no because of MFA fatigue. So that's the other thing. People forget we share devices. You're getting that MFA on your personal iPhone or Android device. And in my case, my intern is just taking a phone call with their grandparent. It could inadvertently give away my account. And I would never know until I get other notifications that are now going to pop off on my phone, which is probably going to light up my smartwatch. I just got compromised and it's Sunday. I'm just sipping my coffee.
That's a great point. And Anthony have talked about doing an episode talking about talking cybersecurity to kids, right? Because we live in a different world. I know the world we grew up in had technology, but there was a lot less of a focus on how you were going to be compromised, and the username and password most of the time was enough to keep your data at least somewhat safe. But obviously we live in a different world. Security culture, it's a big thing, right? And I think a lot of times in our size, the small, medium business world, we see these things and we think like, oh, well, I don't have the time or the resources for that, right? It seems like a big elephant. I know there's the saying, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, but it's hard to break it down, I think. So in your opinion, if you're starting on this journey, and we know we have some security in place, we're not starting from zero, but we want to kind of really focus on the security culture. Where would you start for someone out there that maybe feels like their culture is weak or non-existent?
Sure. So pull that back a little bit. Your culture is either conservative or outgoing. So figure out real quickly where you're at on that. Is it a conservative organization where it has to be black-white? This is your offices, like your legal teams. Your highly regulated businesses may need to be more conservative. So you may have to just use traditional newsletters, podcasts, safety briefings or security briefings and stand-ups, where if you have an outgoing organization, you can use Slack or Discord or micro learnings to quickly use memes and images to entice your users. So figure out where your culture is. Are you conservative or are you outgoing? That's your first step. Second, to your same analogy, I use the apple. Taking one bite of the apple at a time. Don't try to eat the entire apple. So start off, do you have a password manager? Do you have password hygiene? Just to help them understand not to reuse passwords between home and work if possible. MFA, can you turn on multi-factor? Teach them what the value add of multi-factor is. Have a campaign to quickly walk them through how to set up the multi-factor both on their company email and their personal email. Because that's the other thing people forget about. That's where your strongest password should be, is on your email. Because if you forget your password, what do? You send a password reset to that email. Or I send a one-time code to your email. So your strongest passphrase, not password, should be on your email account, not your financial, not your banks, etc. Because anyone who clicks forget password, adversary included, it's going to send an email with the one-time code, the reset link, or etc. So start with the basics again, and then teach them to be able to look at RSS. I know that's a legacy technology, but set up a feed that you can scrape news 24/7. What I do in my company is we have a dedicated Slack channel. We're a Slack shop. So all day long, articles are piped into a security awareness channel that they can go in and read. We highlight them as an organization. We'll pull some out and we'll cross-post them in other places to make sure that they can see those. And at that time, you're now making it a real-world example. You're explaining my peer organization fell for this. This is the new 0 day in Chrome. This is why you should click the button at the top that says relaunch on Monday morning to make sure you're refreshing your browser. So it starts simple. Just reboot your laptop, update Chrome, and work through the auto updates. If you're a small business, you can do auto updates. You can force them to update their browsers or to update their Office platform because it's a smaller organization. It's not a corporate where you can quickly recover if Chrome crashes. You can just say reboot your laptop or put a help ticket in or help Slack or whatever and move forward. So taking the bite, or use out of an elephant, I say on the apple. Don't try to chew it all at once. So just start with password hygiene, multi-factor, and then give them real world examples that they can chew on and take back, as I said, to your interns, to your spouse, to your neighbors, your loved ones, your grandparents.
Yeah, I like the idea of a feed. I never really thought about that. We try to do some like email type of things where something happens, but I like the idea of setting up a feed. There's some people, so to your point, I think there's some employees that get really interested in that as well, even if they're not part of the IT team or the security team. They like to keep an awareness there, maybe just for their own edification and any of their own websites or whatever that they use. It's nice to know.
And then
if
for
they're
you guys,
compromised.
because you both work in the co-op municipality, safety is a big thing. Well, now talk about security. So you have a safety moment, like a walk down in a field. You also have a walk down in some of your things. Start your one-on-ones, start your team meetings, start your stand-ups with a cyber moment. It's 30 seconds. And you introduce a cyber topic. We have an all-hands meeting. Give them 5 minutes this time to talk about an event. Your SOC, your Security Operations Center, can give them a readout of, for the last 5 days, thank you for reporting. Call out a user who reported something to the help desk. The help desk properly escalated to keep the event from happening. These are called shout-outs. If you're doing security development, I work in a software development company, you have security champions on your development team, put security champions in your legal department, your accounting department, where you can feed information to Shelly or Sue or Tom, and Tom can disseminate the information in their stand-ups on their internal portals, in their collateral that they push out. And it's not just an email. If you're like me, I'm no longer an email first company, but email's not the first thing I check. And I'm likely just going to delete it instead of reading it, unless it's bulleted and it's right to the point. I'm going to want that micro, and I want you to introduce it to me in a meeting in a quick 30-second. We won't pick on TikTok. We'll pick on YouTube or something else, little small video. Just give them a video that they can watch asynchronously, that you just publish on your portal or put it in your Teams or your Slack, that they can self-subscribe to and just decide to watch. Shameless plug for me, I drop YouTube shorts Monday through Friday for that very reason. They're about a minute long, just so that people can go out and get a quick bite of that apple before they start their day. I was dropping them at 8, now I drop them around 10 a.m. Eastern time. But still, it's bite-sized information that you can watch and digest, and I call them my food for thoughts. For the last several years, I've posted them on socials. Now I've decided to put a video component to it because I realize people just don't read anymore. They need to audibly hear it. So having a voice, and I've taught too. People say, I've heard your voice when I go take that test. So when they hear things, you're likely it's going to replay that see something, say something mindset. Fletus said that. Tanner said that. Anthony said that. You're going to eventually, people are going to, oh, Anthony, I caught this weekend. I stopped this from attacking my home network because of that safety briefing or security briefing you gave me on Wednesday when you came and talked to my all hands meeting.
We haven't had a ton of those conversations, but I've had some employees do that. And I can tell you nothing makes you happier or more proud to see, some of your employees just talking about security and the stuff that they learned at your organization. Fletus, I guess I'm kind of curious. I think we all have our own definition of what a culture of security would look like at their organization. But in your mind, what is a organization that has a good security culture? What does that look like to you at an organization?
Where they see it as an innovation and not an obstacle. Many times, security is the team of no. I want security to be a team of knowing your no, K-N-O-W. Know why you say no. And use no but or yes but. When you have a culture that's thinking security, they're going to come at, no, you cannot do this, but yes, you can do that. Yes, you can, but I need you in the next sprint to deploy this control. So it's not just a straight yes, no. As us who are parents, No is a complete sentence. Yes is a complete sentence. But if you have a strong culture, it's not a complete sentence. It needs to be a yes, but or a no, but, especially if there's compensating controls that are missing, is the reason that you're saying no.
Yeah, and another interesting, you said, I guess I'm just curious on this. So a lot of us, and I'm not gonna lie, like me included, we focus on that big annual security training, and when new people join, do that. You mentioned doing like shorts. What kind of training? Like, how do you see training, ideal training around cybersecurity for small, medium businesses?
Oh, I've already alluded. I work for a small to mid-size backup and recovery company. Most of my team are development or cloud ops or product related. So when I give them nuggets, I want them to chew on what it would cost for secure coding. How does the OAuth's top 10 apply and why? How does me hard coding a variable and then pushing it to GitHub or GitLab bad? It's going through that secure training with them because everyone knows once you push that PR and it's approved, it's in the repo. So I can't pull it back. I can push another PR and I can approve it and I can override it. But anyone who can see the stat can go get that token or that hard coded password. So just helping them know when they're doing secure coding to call a variable that looks it up from a vault, not actually putting it into their string. On the other side, your marketing team, helping them understand what they can and can't see. For anyone who's worked an incident, a strong security culture means that I tell my executive what they can say, not what they can't. Because as a human, if I tell you what you can't say, and in the heat of the moment, you get pressure, you're going to just start spouting anything and everything you heard the security team say, not realizing I say, do not say that, but say this. So only communicate information that you want to be public and nothing more to an executive or a PR person or your comms person. That's another way to build your security cultures. Keep it concise and use common language. Common language is the biggest thing we fail at. It's called a curse of knowledge. Us who've done this for more than a few months or a few years have a curse of knowledge. We believe this is the baseline knowledge that everyone should know when it comes to phishing, social engineering, security development. That's not the truth. Depending on when you went through school, did you get a certification or did you not? You don't have the same baseline. So you start with common language. When I say virus, what do I mean? When I say malware, what do I mean? When I say phishing, what do I mean? Define it. Break it down to a concise, common language so that when you use it, everyone in your org knows that malware means this. Phishing means that. Social engineering is this. Because if not, you have a curse of knowledge issue. You assume that they understand the word you're using. Same thing, alphabet soup. We're an acronym-heavy organization. Watch your acronyms. Because your acronym may mean something different in their line of business. Again, common language. If I'm going to use an acronym, I have to define it because, funny story, early in my career, I had an acronym. It meant two different things in the same document. So the first 50 pages, it meant one thing. The last 50 pages meant something else. And if you're not aware of that, you assume you're still talking about the same 3-letter word or 3-letter acronym. And now I've changed topics on you and I've confused you in the context of what you're reading, writing, or presenting on.
I feel like you've been watching me in my organization, just being on the same page. I'm bad at that, talking about phishing, things that I think are basic. And, you definitely need to explain that so everyone is on the same page. I'll take that one personal because I definitely need to work on that.
Thank you for that reminder. Anthony and I are actually getting ready to do a presentation here in a few weeks at a conference. And we're specifically going to be talking about that. But oftentimes we need to be reminded ourselves. I was in a board meeting recently. And I was going through like our top 5 risk, cybersecurity risk, and I was talking about phishing and smishing, and one of the board members raised their hand, like, what is smishing? And there you go, right? I mean, how can you say it's a good, how can they, as a board member, right, and they need to properly understand the organization's risk, how can they do that if they literally don't even know what the word means? You talked about leadership, Fletus, and I think in a lot of organizations, you have leadership that's really supporting of what you're trying to do. And then in some organizations, you have those that are going against what you're trying to do. Talk a little bit, and I know you've talked about it in some of your videos, but how important is leadership to like having a great security culture? And then if they're not on your side, like for our listeners, if leadership's not on their side, like how do you get them on board?
Again, it starts with presenting this. So when I mentor people and I give them the scenario, you're in the elevator, you're having to go up 10 floors, and on floor 3, the CEO walks in. He or she is likely going to ask who you are and what do you do for the company. They don't want to hear you say, I deploy firewall rules, snort rules, or I'm blocking and tackling. They want to know how you're adding to the bottom line. I'm here to defend you. Here's how I help return on investment, the ROI. You want to speak business acumen to certain piece. To your point, when you meet with your board, they don't need to know every technical detail of your role. They need to know how you, as the call center, we're a call center, are enabling them to make money and to stay in business. My former COO used to tell us, I know you guys are doing your job when I'm not woken in the middle of the night and I don't see our name in the news. That's not the only time your COO, your chief operating officer, should be hearing from you. They should get regular updates. They should be read in. Your board meetings, you should have a cyber advisor on one of your committees who's asking questions. He or she should be attending and asking questions. So being able to distill information into business acumen. Here's how I'm adding to the bottom line. Here's how I'm saving you money by blocking and tackling without using the word firewall, snort. They don't need to hear that. You need that 30-second pitch of, I'm here to add value to your organization because I enable you to do your job in an effective manner, safely and securely, by putting proper controls in place that's going to decrease the likelihood of a multi-million-dollar breach. That's all you have to say. And after that, they're going to ask you questions. And now you have the opportunity to go deeper, but you didn't confuse them with acronyms. You set the common language by talking about, I'm here to help add to your bottom line, to save you money and your brand recognition because I do blocking and tackling for you behind that closed door over there.
Yeah. And then you kind of use blocking and tackling. We're actually doing some research for this presentation, and we did a survey of leadership. And one of the things they said is to use analogies. They like, whenever you can use an analogy and make it into their own language. Like you said, you talked about people come from different industries, especially on a board level, but even with a CEO level, sometimes they come from a different industry or a different place, and make it into something that they can understand really can be the difference between having the support you need and just feeling like they're confused and don't understand where you're leading them.
Yeah, the other thing too is having humility and a sense of humor. Being able to admit you're wrong and then using a sense of humor. My common dad joke that I use all the time is, what do you do if you get locked out of your house? Talk to the lock, because communication is key. And now I can take that anywhere I want to go. I can take that dad joke, and it's in a lot of my presentations for that very reason. Both of you smirked. Your guard just went down. No matter what I talked about for the next few things, because you've relaxed. I just used humor. And I can first admit, I failed you because I threw out an acronym in the first 2 seconds of my speech to you, board member. I'm sorry, let me go back and start over again. Mm-hmm. Humility goes a long way. Humor goes a long way. Don't overdo it. Don't lie, but use the tools in your toolbox to get through it. Communication is key. Humor goes a long way with humility.
Yeah, I don't think communicating, I hate to say this, and we're working on it ourselves and wanting to help people with it, but communication is just not really, I've not seen that the strong suit of a lot of IT and security folks. Something you referenced a couple of times in our conversation so far was a security committee. I'm not gonna lie, like that's a little bit of a foreign concept for, I could be wrong, but I've only seen one other co-op. Matter of fact, it was Brunswick DMC when we went and visited. They were talking about having a security committee. Can you talk about what that looks like and what's the importance of having a security committee?
So we've talked about in a small to mid-sized business, your GRC or your security awareness is likely a half a person, maybe a full person if you're lucky. So that means they're creating comms, they're creating your phishing sims, your trainings, etc. So what you want to do is you want to build champions. You want to go find out who has an interest. Even if they never want to move into the field, they just care because they want to protect the organization. Bob is sitting on the floor. He knows that they have a morning stand-up. He can remind them to wear their PP&E and also not to click on that link in the same conversation. Put your PP&E on, but also when you go check your email at the end of the day, don't click on the link. Bob just did that for you. You didn't have to do anything. Bob just reminded them to be safe and to be secure at the beginning of their walk down before they walked into the field, the substation that morning. Same thing. Accounting, you're a controller. When you see that invoice, stop and assess. Was I expecting this? Do I need to do this? Talent managers, you have to click on that PDF. But does this PDF look too large? Teach them what is the normal size of a PDF. And when they know that, or you even give them better, send it to your abuse mailbox. We can scan it for you. Or put it in a tool that you can scan and then release it to them. Work with your learning management systems or your ATS that can scan it for them. And if it's not a PDF and it's embedded to look like a CMD or an executable, it doesn't make it to the talent manager. So that's where you just get people to see something, say something. So the more advocates you have in your organization to understand the standard size, standard formats, I'll show me see PDFs, not a text file, not a docx file. And if I do, maybe the security team should look at it because the macro could be enabled in a docx file. This is a Word file that hasn't been converted. So just teaching them to be able to do basic things of stopping and assessing. And the biggest thing I tell most people, it's okay to slow down. Security doesn't know how to slow down. We say run. It's okay to crawl. It's okay to take 3 seconds and not 1 second, or 1 minute to investigate this versus 30 seconds.
Man, you took that in a direction I did not see. For some reason, my mind went to having a security committee to a larger organization. So you're using it to augment the lack of having a lot of dedicated cybersecurity people. That's a great idea.
Let me educate the board. Let me get a champion on my board who can monitor what we're doing, who can read my KPIs, my OKRs, my key performance indicator, and my objective key responses. Go back and define your acronyms. Go back and help them understand when you see this in the news, this is what we're doing. This is how you can go find out. Here's where, if we're a publicly traded company, go look at my K8. I'll tell you what I'm doing, who's in charge of things. If I'm not a publicly traded, here's how you email the security team. And we want you to email the security. Here's the mailbox. Send a question to us. We'll get back to you. We'll answer your question. And we can be asynchronous so that when it comes time to that board meeting, Amy is aware of everything that you're doing, and the CISO doesn't have to spend 5 minutes explaining because Amy's already reached out to the org and got her information. And now the CISO, CTO, CIO can add to that value because Amy's already a champion. She's aware. Amy's been interacting with you as the advisor on your board, your security advisor as part of your board membership. That's the other thing. I think that might have been where you were going. I'm building internal champions.
I think it's a great idea. We have a technology team that talks about general technology, but I think it might be something we can use, enable those people to be security champions.
Most of you have Modern Arc or a cyber architecture review team, or you have some kind of guild or committee that's already doing your reviews for technology. Put someone on there to see what new policies, procedures, or training do we need to build if we deploy this technology. Another thing, your security team can do a roadshow of this is the tools we have installed. This is what our block screens look like. This is the color scheme. This is the icons. If you see anything other than what this screen looks like, it's not us. That's not us. We didn't block you. That's a piece of malware. That's someone trying to use scareware, because this is how we interact with you. These are the tools. These are the names of our tools. If we can disclose them, sometimes you can't. And this is how they're going to interact with you. This is what the prompt's going to look like when we block a website. This is what the prompt's going to look like when you try to download something. And if the prompt looks totally different than that, again, see something, say something, call the help desk, send the email to the security operations center, or pick up the phone and call your boss and say, hey, I think I just did something, without the fear of ramification. Because that's where you're wanting to build culture. The sooner you can tell me, the sooner I can fix it. That's why phishing always is important. I don't care if you click. It's how quick do you report it. Click rates are great if you want to know how people are susceptible. I really want to know how quick you're going to report it, because the sooner you report it, I don't have to wait on my SOAR, my security orchestration and automation, to pick that up and tell me, did you click on it? You told me you did it. So I know this endpoint may be infected. This endpoint sits in this virtual LAN area network. I need to isolate it. Or you have access to this file share with God rights. I need to go watch these files to make sure they don't get encrypted or get exfilled.
No, that's a great point. I think you talked about how just taking a little extra time makes the world a difference. And we do try to get people to do that, because in a world where you're getting emails and Teams chats and Slack or whatever, you get kind of, in some cases, you get overwhelmed and you just like, you're going fast, and that can lead you. And to your point, if you can convince people that we're not going to scold you if you tell us about something you did, we're going to use that to go ahead and take action. We had that happen pretty recently with an incident, and the lady came forward and was like, hey, I did this. She only got one step in to what they were trying to get her to do. But once she got to the second step, she got nervous. She called us, and we immediately, to your point, isolated the endpoint. But we didn't find out about it from our SOC for about 15 minutes. She told us. We actually got the thing offline probably within 3 or 4 minutes. So that was at least 10 minutes quicker. And to your point, if she had some sort of admin access to a file share or something like that, 10 minutes can be potentially a long time. I mentioned it earlier in the intro. A lot of people want to focus on tools. So like, to our listeners out there who are like, users are a lost cause. We're not going to make it up there. We just need better monitoring. We need better prevention tools. What do you say to them who think if we have a budget of time and of money, we should, spend it on things that are more effective, let's say controls and the other?
So that's my challenge to everyone that I've ever worked with. Go ask your CISO, what do you spend on your people? And then sit there. Don't say a word. Sit there. Make it awkward. What do you spend on your people? I know what you spend on tools because you have to report that. I know what you pay for O&M, what your CapEx is on your tools. What are you spending on your people? It's probably only your phishing sim. That's all you're spending. Whatever the headcount is, that seat license to send the monthly, quarterly, annually simulation, and that learning management tool to send their onboarding and their annual training. That's too little for most organizations. But to your point, it's hard to materialize and say this is adding a value without having that micro learning piece. Test their knowledge monthly somewhere else. Put a metric of how quick does the help desk report something? How quick does the finance team report something? And track those metrics. And then give some kind of kudos. It could be a shout out in a newsletter that you give. It could be if your executives do fireside briefings, they could nominate a person for a spotlight award. You can bring them into the boardroom and have lunch with them or breakfast. Spend money on that to build a culture, because it's easy to go buy another EDR solution, a SIEM, a SOAR, a data lake, and say that's a value add because now it's in my depth and defense. But the depth starts with the employee, as I said. It starts from the time they wake up. So did you give them the tools to do their job? Did you tell them you can take a 15-minute break at 10 o'clock today to reset? That's 15 minutes you just spent soft dollars, but you spend that money on telling them they can take a break so that they don't come back, and understanding the risk of what they share online. If I know you start at 8 a.m., I'm going to fish you at 8. I know you're going to lunch at noon. I'm going to send you a fish at 12:59. So when you come back, you're going to click on it. I know you end your day at 4. So I'm going to call you at 3:55 and say something urgent needs to be approved. Please click the link. Teach them that what they communicate through social media to the world, even better, don't take a public phone call on speaker. Don't tell business over lunch. Invest in that kind of training too. And don't wear your badge on the public transportation so that they know your name and where you work. Because now they can say, hey, I met Sally last night on the bus and she said I needed to call in and I need to report this. I need you to download this piece of software real quick and approve it. And if the person knows Sally and knows that Sally works and rides the bus every day, they might, I just gave credit. I just credentialized that person to be able to do something and they didn't have the credentials to do it. So many times, just to pull it back in, you're sitting in an airport, you're in TSA, and someone's taking that last minute phone call and they're saying, hey, I'm about to fly to company X to meet with executive Y and the deal is worth X amount of money. If I'm the competitor behind you, I'm calling up and saying, hey, this is what they're about to sell this for. Can we undercut them? That's not even a cyber issue. That's just a business issue of me giving away. Or you're sitting in first class and the guy beside you doesn't have a screen protector on and he opens up his entire client list beside you on the plane. Maybe don't open your laptop on the plane if there's sensitive information, because shoulder surfing or the person beside you could be reading what's on your screen. You feel like you have to work on that plane, have to work on the train, have to work on the bus. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's more of a risk to the organization that you work in those places than it is for you to wait till you get home or you get to the office or get to your client site.
Yeah, that's one thing where when we have people traveling overseas, we make sure to talk to them about that. And if at all possible, and most likely it's always possible, is to not take your work device when you travel overseas. One thing, I figured you've seen a lot of different scenarios. Can you tell us something unconventional or creative method that organizations have used to emphasize their training or make it more engaging to their folks?
Yeah, so gamification works. So clean desk policy. If I walk through after hours and you left something, I either put something on your desk. It could be a piece of chocolate. It could be a sticker for either having a clean desk or not having a clean desk. So just something that audibly is seen. Or being negative, your name gets called out in a meeting for failing this. Shaming. Don't like the shaming, but occasionally if you got enough culture where it's okay, it's a small enough team, and my name shows up on the list, peer pressure is going to tell me to get my name off that list. They're not shaming me. They're just listing my name as the person who clicked on the fish this week. Or even better, I have a rig in the back where I'm cracking all of my employees' passwords. I don't want my name to show up on that password cracking tool because I made a weak password. I don't have to list your name. I just list your password on the screen. I didn't say it was Fletus's password. I didn't say it was Tanner's password. I didn't say it was Anthony's password. I just put the password on the screen. You know that's your password. Everyone in the org now knows this is a weak password that was used in our environment. I shouldn't use that. This is what complexity, this is what length looks like. You could spin that very quickly, but just famously putting up the person's password on a meeting of this is what we cracked this week, because you got a password cracking tool that's cracking all of your users' passwords just to see if they're too weak.
No, I like that. It's that we do that a little bit, not from a security point of view, but they do that a lot from operationally. There's like making a competition where, between our different districts on how well they're performing. And I think that's something that we don't do enough and maybe it's click-through rate. I'm not sure all the different things you could try, but I think to your point, like gamifying a little bit and maybe even just sharing which departments do a better job than others.
Another one that's fun to do, we all run tabletops or have run a tabletop. If you haven't, that's your incident response to test your incident response plan. Instead of testing your incident response plan, test your security awareness plan. Ask someone from legal to come in, marketing to come in, and your injects is you sent a message to the legal team or you sent a message to the marketing team and ask them how they handle it. So run the tabletop of how would you handle a social engineering attack? How would you handle a phishing? How would you handle X? And you're running that as your gamification of running a security awareness tabletop now versus an incident response tabletop. Or play a capture the flag with your entire org, and the flags are in your policies and procedures. They have to go load your policy and procedure to find the flag, and you embed the flag in Article A, Section 2, line item B. That's how they get their flag. Kills two birds with one stone. They know where to find the policy. They've read some of the policy, and now they're looking around your organization. So you can't say that they don't know you have an acceptable use policy that says your password, thou shall be 14 characters.
I've never seen anyone ever make reading a policy fun, so thank you for that.
I mean, and the other thing too is you can embed stuff in like a SharePoint site. Go find the image of our CISO in a chair, and you just tell them it's on this site and make them go find it. And while they're looking through the site, they're going to learn the cookie crumbs of how to go back, and eventually they're likely going to bookmark things because this is interesting to me. I want to go back and read this later, but right now I got to go find this picture of my CISO sitting in a chair on the beach as a flag for my security awareness month training or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea, honestly, cyber or not, because when we're getting ready to do operational policy changes and review, and there'll be some technology stuff there, but it could be just random things, and you push that out there and you always say like, here are the changes, but a lot of people blow that off. I think that's a great way. I might actually use that across the organization on that one. Speaking of we kind of talked a little bit about some real world examples of how people reporting and how they being able to report quicker was better. Obviously, I think that can help you understand where your security culture is a little bit in your travels. Have you seen a distinct item or distinct time whenever you felt like someone did such a good job with security culture that actually potentially saved them from a breach?
Yes. So we did that at the regulated utility I was part of. The CISO or CSO at the time would actually call out the help desk analyst who caught the fraudulent call of someone trying to do a fraudulent password reset. They followed their playbook, they escalated, and they shut it down. Even better, to your analogy earlier, I clicked on this, I saw the download start going, I turned off my wireless, I unplugged my Ethernet call, and I disconnected from the web. I didn't turn off my laptop and potentially stopped a compromise and a lateral movement attack at that point in time. Just calling out stuff like that where to see something, say something worked, or they followed their procedure. They listened to you. They knew how to be the security advocate. Because that's the other thing I didn't talk about earlier. Every one of your help desk or service desk or even frontline folks are your best blue team member. Because if they're listening to you, they know what to listen for. They know what to look at, and they know how to report it. So make your end users part of your blue team.
So, Fletus, for our listeners, if there was one thing to take away from this entire discussion, what do you think that focus should be for our listeners?
Sure. We all have intellect. We're all a subject matter expert in something. Don't let anyone tell you you don't know something, because no matter if you've been on the job 1 day or 20 years, you bring your life experiences and your diversity to every role that you do, both professionally and personally. So use that to your advantage. Bring in the knowledge that you have, either from formal education, the school of hard knocks, or just being mentored. So with that, find a mentor and be a mentor. That's the best way to stay abreast in this field. And even better, do reverse mentorship. Find someone who can pour into you and you pour into them. I may be an AI expert. You may be a security engineer expert. So we can share knowledge and be able to pour back. So have someone behind you who's going to take your shoes. Have someone in front of you who's already gone through it, who can help you through that. And you learn from them. That way you're doing cross-functional. You're helping people understand, I don't want you to be in the ditch, but if you do get in the ditch, this is how you get out. Because ultimately, I'm not trying to make a clone of Fletus when I mentor you. I'm just trying to make you the best you. So again, you have intellect, you have expertise, you have knowledge. So you should be a mentor and you should have a mentee.
Yeah, recently I participated in the NREC mentorship program, and honestly, I think I probably got more out of my mentee than he got from me. We're all experts in one thing or the other, and anyways, there's definitely ways to learn from each other, and that's something we should be more proactive on.
No, I totally agree with that, and I think that's one of the reasons I love working in the space that we do, where we can be, as cooperatives, a little more transparent than maybe a publicly traded company. Obviously, they're not going to be reaching out to competitors and be like, "How did you guys do this?" But so I really enjoy that, and really that's how I met Anthony, and through those discussions of just asking people how they're doing things, and for those that have gone through whatever security implementation or just technology implementation before me, kind of learning those lessons learned and those pitfalls to steer away from.
So I'll challenge one thing you said there. Even if you're in a publicly traded company, security is still security. So you should be part of your information sharing groups. Get into your local ISAC. If it's retail, if it's finance, if it's energy, be part of your ISACs and be comfortable sharing. You may not be able to share publicly on a forum, but you can share in a local meetup. Hey, I deployed this tool. Here's the gotcha you need to watch out for. Hey, this adversary from this country using this TTP, this tactic, technique, and procedure is likely going to hit you because they've hit me last week. Go look at your firewall logs, go look at your endpoint logs and see if you see this IP, this user string, this agent, this piece of software in your environment, because you're likely being opportunistically attacked just like I am if you're not targeted. So as a security or an IT person, you can talk to your competitor because you're not competing with them on security. Yes, security could be a pillar when you go to market, but at the end of the day, we're all here to protect the organization and the country and the nation that we live in. So be comfortable talking with your security and IT peers about lessons learned from tools, tactics, procedures, etc.
No, that's a good point. And I think we are all trying to go through the same journey together in a lot of ways. Obviously, some of us are in different industries, things like that, but the end goal is obviously protecting our data, our systems. And to your point earlier, I think you mentioned one of my kind of mantras early on was, the business has to be the business, right? You're enabling the business to go through their motions and be more secure. We don't want to be that one that's that constant restriction. We really appreciate you coming on. I feel like I've learned a ton. I got some really great ideas. I thought you might want to kind of use a moment here just to kind of tell people where to find you. I know you have a YouTube channel as well, and you might want to shout that out here.
Yeah. So again, I alluded to, I'm on YouTube, Fletus Poston. I put out shorts Monday through Friday. I try to put out a little small 10 to 15 minute, maybe 20-minute talk on Mondays. And I try to go live once a week. LinkedIn, I put similar thoughts out there. If you're in the Carolinas, I'm very active in a lot of our ISACs information sharing groups. Feel free to come up and say hello. Let me know. I make some national events too. So feel free if you run into me just to come say where we met. Happy to shake your hand, share more information that I can't share online about the stories that we talked about. And continue to stay safe and stay secure.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. For our listeners out there, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to shoot us an email, show at offthewirepodcast.com. Let us know any feedback you have or an interesting topic that you may want us to cover. Again, we release episodes every other Monday. And until next time, this is Off the Wire.